I'm the president of the organization here. Just want to say hello and welcome to you all. I see quite a few new faces this morning, so if you are here for the very first time, please raise your hand. Wow, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are an entirely volunteer-led organization. Nobody here gets paid, not that I know of. Roger? Okay, all right. So we have a good time here. We have a lot of really cool events. As you probably saw, an event scroller going through. Our communications director created that. We are, like I said, we're all volunteer-led. In fact, the breakfast that we had this morning, that was all volunteer done. So thank you to the breakfast crew. Did you enjoy breakfast? Yes? Fantastic. Let me open my notes here. So we have a couple of things that we're going to be going through this morning. This morning, actually, we had a short little 30-second board meeting. One of our inverters for our solar panels died on us, and we are going to have both inverters replaced in a much larger one. So that's coming up. That's going to be worked on probably in the next. Howard knows he's going to be working on that next week, getting those inverters fixed for us. The biggest thing right now is we need a full-time program director. This person will be setting up the meetings that you have seen here, like getting the speaker in, making sure that all the information is correct, and we try to make sure that the speakers that we do have are humanist focused. We try to focus on the values and the ethics that humanism espouses. Also science topics, sometimes politics. Seems like we've been doing a lot of politics lately, and it's probably the water that we swim in. But we'd like to see if you have ideas about what kind of speakers you'd like to see here. Please come and talk to myself or any of the other board members, and we can get you set up. This is a desperate need. It's probably one of the most crucial roles here outside of the treasurer, and also what Michelle does with service and participation, getting us going and making sure that we have the community that we want to see. So, if you aren't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, we are live streaming this on YouTube. So please check us out on there. Subscribe to our channel if you can. We have a small Patreon page. Right now we're gathering about $40 a month for helping upgrade things like the cameras, the audio system. It's a small little trickle. We're not asking for the huge donations. It's just something that keeps us constantly upgrading the AV system here at the community center. The biggest thing after that would be our Discord channel. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up there. Much of our social media is going to be transitioning to Discord. The reason why is because we've noticed that social media has become a cesspool, and we don't want to be part of it. We want to be part of the positive impact in the world. So join us on Discord. There's plenty of QR codes that we could share with you to get you to where you need to be and go from there. So after that, just wanted to mention real quick that we have an upcoming blood drive, and we're doing this through the Red Cross. Red Crosses and blood donation centers around the nation have seen a decline in donations. We have been partnering with Red Cross for a few years now. We do this quarterly, and those donations help save lives. So if you can help us sign up, come talk to myself, especially Howard. He helps open the building, and go from there. The other thing is that we have our little free pantry out front. We're starting to get a lot more traction. People are from around the neighborhood, especially some of the neighborhood kids that attend the high school and elementary school nearby. We walk through, grab a milk, grab an orange juice, and then continuing about their day. And this helps these kids with their nutrition. So if you could help donate towards the Little Free Pantry, if there are books that if you have, especially children's books, that would go to the Little Free Library that's out front. So lots of really, really cool stuff. Last weekend we had Cthulhu's Chosen Gamers. That's a gaming group that we do. So there's a number of different things that we do here in the community center. I run the Philosophy Under the Influence group. We talk about philosophy, have a drink if you imbibe, and then we go from there. We have a good time. Talk about next session is actually on what is the nature of God. Ooh. Yesterday, though, two amazing things happened here in this community center. The first was Roger and Marty opened up the building for us and got crocheting sleeping mats for people experiencing homelessness. Yes. We cut up the shopping bags, crochet them into sleeping mats so people aren't sleeping on the hard concrete, cold or hot concrete. And this is one way that we help give back to the community. Another way that we help give back to the community is our VAST meetings. Our Michelle volunteer, mutual aid, and solidarity team. This team comes together and creates a lot of the volunteer opportunities that we have not only here in the community center, but around the valley as well. We've got a number of really cool stuff that we talked about yesterday. It was an exciting meeting. So if you're interested in helping out, that'd be great. Another thing that Vici helps with is our member support team. She'll be giving us a little more information about that in the next coming meeting. Okay, so fantastic. That being said, I could stand up here and talk all day, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let Dianne take us over. But we're going to allow Vici to introduce our speaker, but not before giving a humanist minute. This is a short little introduction of what humanism means to that person. So, come on up, Vici.
Thank you. We don't get paid? I didn't know that. Okay. The Humanist Minute. Can you hear me? I came across this on the web, and it just spoke to me. There might be some words in it that might grate a little bit with some non-believers, but I really, really liked it. It's from the Hopi Indian chief, White Eagle. This moment that mankind is experiencing now can be seen either as a door or a hole. The decision to fall into the hole or go through the door is yours. If you absorb information 24 hours a day with negative energy, constantly nervous and pessimistic, you will fall into the hole. But if you take the opportunity to look at yourself, use the time to rethink life and death, to care for yourself and others, you are walking through the portal. Keep your home, keep your body safe. Connect with your spiritual home. When you take care of yourself, you take care of everyone else. Don't underestimate the spiritual dimension of the crisis. Take the perspective of an eagle that sees everything from above with a broader perspective. There is a social issue in this crisis, but also a spiritual one. They both go hand in hand. Don't underestimate the spiritual dimension. With the social dimension, we fall into bigotry. Without the social dimension, we fall into bigotry. Without the spiritual dimension, we perish in pessimism and meaninglessness. If you're ready to pass this crisis, pack your toolbox and use all the tools at your disposal. Learn the resistance of the example of the Indian and African people. We are and still are being threatened with extinction, but we never stopped singing, dancing, building bonfires, and having joy. Don't feel guilty for feeling happy in these difficult times. It doesn't help at all to be sad or angry. Resistance is resistance through joy. Remember when Dr. Ann Schneider spoke, she said the whole talk is about one word, resist. Resistance through joy. You have every right to be strong and positive, and there's no other way to do this than by adopting a beautiful, cheerful, empathetic attitude. This has nothing to do with alienation or ignorance of the world. It is a resistance strategy. When we enter the door, we are given a new worldview because we have faced our fears and overcome adversity. That's all you can do now. Keep a solace in the storm. Keep calm. Meditate daily. Make it a habit to meet the holy everywhere, every day. show resistance through art, joy, trust, and love. Okay. And for my second act, I am really, really proud to present one of our very own, Dianne Post. Dianne has been an attorney since 1980. For more than 18 years, she represented battered women and molested children in family and juvenile court. In 98, she shifted to international human rights law. She has lived in 5 countries: Russia, Moscow in the Far East, Cambodia, Hungary, Algeria, and Kenya, and worked in 14 others for short periods of time. She is legal director for Secular Coalition for Arizona. Locally, she's active in the NOW and the ERA task force, and a commissioner on the Arizona Commission of African American Affairs. She is currently representing Randolph residents in their settlement with SRP. She also has a pending case at the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights regarding the pattern and practice of U.S. judges giving custody and unsupervised visitation to abusers in family law cases, and is still fighting for compensation for 2 cases she won for the Roma in Kosovo. She has published 6 law review articles, more than 3 dozen manuals, more than 3 dozen articles in 5 countries, columns in 10 publications, 6 short stories, 4 of which have won prizes, and 2 books. Please welcome, I am very proud to say, please welcome our impressive friend, Dianne Post.
And if somebody wants to come and clean my house someday, that you're happy to come. All right. You can see what I put here from down in the snake pit. I try never to go down there if I can because it is so toxic. You know, Eva Birch just announced she was going to resign, right? Because it is so toxic and you just can't get anything down there. But I happened to be down there last Thursday because the Secular Coalition, of course, had their day at the Capitol. I also was there at 8:30 in the morning because the ERA task force had a celebratory press conference to celebrate the fact that the Equal Rights Amendment is now the 28th Amendment. And yes, it is. And if you want me to come and talk about that one day, I will. But anyway, so we had that at 8:30 in the morning. So in the secular day, we went over to the Capitol then, and when they started, and 2 ordained ministers, Representative Cruz and Stahl Hamilton, introduced the Secular Coalition in the gallery, and, you know, we all stood up. I don't know, it was 20, 25 of us, and we all stood up. Then I didn't leave because I had to wait for the end of the meeting when Cruz was going to do an announcement about the ERA, so I couldn't go. But the rest of them then went over to the Senate to have the same thing happen over there. What I noticed was, after the secular people left the gallery, the Freedom Caucus came into the room. They had been hiding back behind the speaker in that room back there, and somebody obviously texted them or whatever and said, okay, well, they're gone now, it's safe. So then out came the Freedom Caucus and went to their chairs. And I thought, you are such cowards and bullies. You won't even be in the room when someone disagrees with you. I was just stunned when I saw that. And yeah, Wow was right. That was what I thought. So what else happened while I was waiting? I had to wait through the entire process for Cruz to do her thing with the ERA at the end. So, you know, I waited through all their different bills that they voted on, and it was really enlightening because 2 particular bills that they voted on. One was to reduce the interest rate on credit cards. You know, when you buy something with a credit card, you always got to pay. You're paying extra every time. And the other one was about tickets for events. Like you buy a ticket online for the game, you know, the Rose Bowl, or not the Rose Bowl, but whatever, something, you know, whatever's happening. And you don't get it until the day before or, you know, hours before, or you get an email at the end saying, oh, sorry, we don't have a ticket, that sort of thing. So they wanted to make a law that they had to give it to you 15 days after you purchased it. For both of these, they both failed, both these bills failed. But during the discussion, Justin Olson, who was the LD, is an LD 10. Anybody his constituent here? A few of you. I thought so. He stood up and he said he had to explain his vote for both of these bills. And he explained it that he could not vote for these bills because this was an interaction between a person and a business, a company. And who was the government to stick their nose in between this person and this company when they were having a consensual relationship, a consensual discussion? They made an interaction between these two people in a company, and it was none of the government's business to be sticking their nose in that. This remind you of anything? So when I went home, I sat down, wrote him an email. And I said, well, I happened to be there, and I heard your argument on these two bills, and I was just curious about why then did you vote for the government to stick their nose in between a woman and her medical care provider in a decision that is about her medical care that should be private and that has no impact on the rest of the society? Then if you believe what you said this morning, you should vote to keep the government out of that. Did he respond to me? No, he did not. And I had to go down on Friday to drop off some ERA, some constitutions with the ERA in it, the 28th Amendment. And I walked right by him, and he recognized me. He was talking to Carbone, and they were standing outside talking, and it was like, I didn't say hello or anything. I thought, I better get out of here. So anyway, all right. Am I controlling this, or are you controlling this? I guess I am. All right. Nope, I think I went too far, though. I did. All right. So here's the topics that that they are attacking down there. They are attacking, well, there's religion, the separation of church and state. We knew that would be a big thing because they've been empowered to do that. So it's always been an issue, but it's even worse this year. Racism, sexism, voter suppression. Oh, my God. The Secretary of State, Fontes has a meeting every Monday morning and to discuss bills and stuff, and so it's tomorrow, and I went over the bills today that he'd sent out about, and I think he has 22 different voter bills that he, personally, his office, is following, all bad, every one of them bad, 13 in the House and 9 in the Senate. So these will all be bills we'll be discussing tomorrow about arguments, what to make, blah-de-blah-de, but voter suppression is a really, there's more than that in the legislation, but 13 that affect the Secretary of State directly. Attacks on immigrants, attacks on the homeless and poor, and the support for law enforcement and militarism. And this goes hand in hand. All those bills about supporting police and paying police and giving police extra benefits and all kinds of things for the police. This isn't an accident. This is leading toward the more militarized society to control us. All right, first I'll cover the religious bills. And as far as I'm concerned, as I go over them, you can ask questions, raise your hand at that time, because it's easier to do it when I'm actually talking about it than after it's all over with, okay? All right, so the first one is different on my paper than that, so it's all right. 2018, money to religious teachers' colleges. And this is to give money, state money, to private schools for training teachers. The argument is, well, we need more teachers because we have a shortage of teachers. Well, the reason we have a shortage of teachers is because you treat them like shit and you pay them like shit, right? So, having more teachers that you can treat like shit and pay like shit isn't going to help anything. But they want to give money to what private school? Grand Canyon University, which is a religious university. And I think University of Phoenix is still running, right? And it's a mess. It's a terrible, terrible school. So those are the kind of private schools they want to give your tax dollars to. So you should be against that. All right, 2123. Okay, personal information. This was a bill that started out by saying that a religious leader who feared attack from the public could have their personal information redacted from the government records. Like now, if you're a battered woman or you're a police officer or a judge, you can get your personal information off of the government records so that somebody who might want to find you to beat you up or shoot you or attack you or whatever can't as easily find you. Well, they want to add religious leaders to this because of threats against Jewish leaders, for example, threats against, as far as I know, that's the only people being threatened is Jewish leaders, right? And satanic temple leaders, right, being threatened. But that they weren't doing it for satanic temple, believe me. They were doing it, I think, for Jewish leaders who were being threatened. Well, we objected to this because we said it's not just religious leaders who are being targeted. Non-religious leaders are also targeted because they disagree with some of the things the MAGA people are saying. So anyone who is a, quote, leader should be able to get their information redacted so that they can't be a target quite so easily in this society that has become more and more violent, as you know. So again, the two ministers in the House sponsored that amendment. So we had two ordained ministers sponsoring the amendment which added, or a leader of a belief system. Any old belief system can have this happen. I'm against it altogether, but it's going to pass. So this is about the best we can do with that. So it's passed the House with those amendments on it. All right, the next one, 2728. Yeah, 2728. This is a DUI alternative treatment. This started out to say that a judge could order a person to a religious program for DUI treatment without their permission. So it would mean that you could be ordered to go to a religious program even though you were not religious or of that particular religion. Yeah, exactly. So we, of course, objected to that. And it got changed to say that a judge may sentence the person to an alternative religious treatment if the person agrees and the treatment does not proselytize. All right? So again, I just assumed we didn't have it at all, but we're not going to get that. So this at least makes it only if the person agrees and only if they don't proselytize. But one of my arguments against it is there is no record to show that these religious treatments, including AA, work any better than anything else. There is no evidence of that. So why are we giving preference to religious treatments? Well, they'll get money, right? If you're sent there, then that means they get money. State dollars. So it's all about the money. Always follow the money. Yes?
So is there a penalty or a clawback of funds if one of those programs is found to be preaching, etc.?
Probably not. You could sue and stop money going, but clawing it back is probably would never happen.
But yeah, so no penalty associated in the bill?
Right. There is one of my arguments also was in 3 other states this had been passed, and they were forcing people to go to religious treatment, and they were sued and they lost every one of them because you cannot force someone to go. So they did change it. But no, there's no clawback money for that proselytizing business. Okay, the next one, 1269. Nope. Yep, I'm a 1269. Yeah, I am. Okay, there we go. Volunteer school chaplains. How many think that's a good idea? Boo! Who is the great progenitor of this idea? Wendy Rogers. We were talking earlier, there is some serious mental illness down there. I mean, really, there is some serious mental illness. So this would be volunteer school chaplains. Absolutely not. No, 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 and no. So there's no way to fix any of this, so we shall see what happens, I guess. If it passes, I mean, we don't have any choice but to sue them. I mean, really, we have to sue them if it passes. All right, transitional housing, religious institutions. Oh, yeah. This one, do we need transitional housing to get people out of prison and into the community? Yeah. So there's a bill to have this transitional housing and to put money into it, blah, blah. But a woman who is a pastor and runs a religious ministry down in Yuma researched this place, and it turns out this is a bill for one particular place that has 220 beds, and that the Kern, remember Kern, who went to January 6th, who used to be a legislator, has some money in, and it is a wacko religious place. They do baptisms in the swimming pool. She's got, off of their website is all kind of religious stuff and pictures of these baptisms and pictures of prayers and, crosses everywhere and all of that. So it's one of them, far-right evangelical religious places. That's who's going to get the money if this passes. So many things sound like good ideas until you look into what it's really about. And it's always about what? Money. Money, money, money. And that's what this is about. So while it sounds good, I had to switch my position to being negative and not support it. All right. There's two that, maybe on the next page, I don't know. All right, let's go with this one. Alternative volunteers. Oh, transitional, I did that. Religious institutions development. This is one which is really problematic. This is the, yes, God in your backyard, right? Bill. And it has pitted people who should be on the same side against each other. So I am against some of the same, Ann Schneider, for example, that apparently was just here speaking, and CEBV on this one. So here's the issue. It would allow religious institutions to build on their own property housing if 40% of it was for low income. They would not have to abide by any of the local zoning or neighborhood rules or regulations. There comes the problem. So you have a NIMBY situation in that many of the neighborhood associations and the League of Town and Cities opposes this bill. Not because it's for low income, but because they don't have to obey any of the zoning laws or neighborhood, association rules. Setbacks, traffic, noise, lighting, any of that kind of thing. Traffic. And so that's the problem that neighborhoods fear is a complete taking over of a neighborhood by this institution. The other problem that they're talking about in the neighborhoods is because it's a religious institution, it doesn't add anything to the infrastructure. It uses the infrastructure, the roads, the sewers, the electric, but it doesn't pay taxes. So it's not adding to that infrastructure at all to create it. And it adds traffic problems, parking problems, etc. It's a developer's wet dream to be able to develop on a piece of land without any rules or regulations whatsoever. One of my issues is, why is it only 40% low-income housing? What I was told was, well, you have to have 60% higher payment in order to sustain it financially. Now, I know zero about finances, and I know some of you in here do, and maybe that's true and maybe it ain't, I don't know. But that was the excuse that I was given. However, how this is already being misused, and I was against it from the beginning before I heard from all the neighborhood people. That is, down in Oro Valley, there's been a fight going on for many years. I think maybe even decades. Did anybody know about this battle? It's a semi-rural community, and there's a mega church, not a MAGA, a mega, big church, mega church there who wants to expand and build a school, apartments, all of this stuff. The community does not want it. They moved there because they wanted to remain rural. They didn't want all that traffic and the noise and the coming and going and all of that. They have their own lawyer. I'm not involved in it. They have their own lawyer, and they're fighting it. They didn't want me involved in it because to them it's not about religion. They don't want that, religion, anti-religion thing in there. It's about neighborhood rights to be able to maintain your own neighborhood in the way you want it. So they've been fighting this church, a mega church, for literally about 10 years down there. So I think this was part of it. It's also, Dream City, right? They got that mega church. It is a mega church, and it is a mega church in North Phoenix as well. And they're already doing things which they shouldn't be doing, like putting crosses on public land. So many of the neighbors have already complained, and the city of Phoenix has come and taken them down because there's no permit, you cannot go putting crosses on public land, etc. So these kinds of battles are already going on, and you know if they get this bill passed, they will just run riot with this stuff. So it, as I said, it's pitted. We all want more low-income housing. We desperately need it. But this isn't the way to do it because the long-term harm is going to overshadow the benefit. So anybody got any questions about that? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to pass or not, but just because, well, my other problem with this, and I've said this from the very beginning on all of these, religious institutions should not have any special privileges. Remember when was all the gay people shouldn't have special privileges? Yeah, well, neither should churches, right? They have not got a good track record of treating people well, have they? Let's look at, all the child abuse scandals, the Magdalene laundries, the Indian boarding schools, you go on and on and on. They do not have a good track record. Yes, question in the back there.
Dianne, has the governor pronounced on these bills? Will she veto? Has she said she'll veto them? And can any of these vetoes could the vetoes be overridden, or could they be put onto the ballot?
No, the governor has spoken on none of them, which she should not until they're actually passed. No, they could not override a veto if one did come. And they can be put on the ballot only if they are passed as a House concurrent resolution, and none of these are. There are some that are, but these aren't. Yes, VC. Oh, okay.
I wanted to make a comment. As a realtor and working for former builder, low-income housing always reduces the value of the neighborhood. It increases crime. I'm not stereotyping poor people, but it increases crime and reduces the value of the surrounding homes.
Okay, anything else on that one? All right, the next one we're going to is, all three of these are put in by, well, no, the third one. So the first two, patriotic youth groups, which passed in the House 60-0. Now, what's the problem with patriotic youth groups? Well, there's two different definitions, and you'll see the other one in the Senate, that public school patriotic groups, the Senate passed that as well. So since they both passed one, they're different, which means they'll have a conference committee and come up with one that will be the same in both houses. Right now, they're different bills, similar but different. And how they're defined, the Senate one, who put in the Senate one? Wendy Rogers. Yeah, a little nutcase Wendy. And there is a national definition. And it lists who are the patriotic groups. It includes some that we would agree with. She took all of those out of her bill. Any of the ones that we might agree with, she took out, like Girl Scouts or something. She took that out and just left in the ones we wouldn't agree with. The one in the House just lists that statute as saying defined by this statute. It includes all of them. So you could make an argument at least that some of the groups that we would like gay groups or some other kind of groups would fit under that definition. But under Rogers' bill in the Senate, she deliberately took all of those out. She actually listed the definition and took them out so that we wouldn't be able to be having patriotic groups that would be talking about gay things, for God's sakes, or anti-God things, for God's sakes. And so those are two bills that are going on there. And you can see that our sometimes you just, find wall, bang head. Because you wonder why are the Democrats doing this? It's go along to get along, really. Oh, it sounds good, patriot. Oh, sure, we want to show that we're patriotic. But what you're doing is not patriotic at all. It is undercutting our democracy, undercutting the First Amendment, and you're doing this without thinking. So anyway, that's where we are. And then that middle one, the Pledge of Allegiance. It failed. Can you believe that? It actually failed in the House. So I'm hoping, of course, they asked for it to come up again on reconsideration, bloody. But most people know it's against the Constitution and that we would sue them and then they would pay the money and lose. Yeah, well, let's hope they don't pass it. That's the first thing. All right, anything that's the end, yeah. It's the end of the religious bills.
Okay, but exactly what is 2725? It's Pledge of Allegiance and parental notification, but what is the content?
If your child does not stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance in school, they would notify the parent. No, if you don't do it, they will notify your parent. I've had a couple of cases here, and one fairly recently, about a child who did not stand and did not recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and the teacher attacked her. Seriously, attacked her. Sent her to the principal's office, bloody, and the mom was furious and said, my daughter has a right not to say it if she don't want to. And so she called me, and, we jumped in and got going, and the teacher was reprimanded, and so, sorry, nope, she don't have to say it, leave her alone. So it hasn't happened again, but this has happened a couple of times with teachers reprimanding children when they don't do it, when in fact they don't have to do it. Constitutionally, they do not have to do it. The Supreme Court says so. They don't have to do it. Of course, our current Supreme Court, I like to call it the Supreme Cult. All right, any more questions on the religious bills? Next big group is the racism, sexism bills. Oh, they are just busy as hell down there with all of that. The preferential treatment, now this one would go on the ballot if it's passed, because you see it's an HCR. So House Concurrent Resolution means it goes on the ballot if passed by both houses. It cannot be vetoed by the governor, and it just goes on the ballot as it is in hopes that people are stupid enough to vote for it. And given our last election, that just may be the fact. People in Arizona have given away their own power before. For example, they passed that thing that required 60% in order to pass an initiative or something like that, and I was like, are you nuts? Why are you giving away your own power? But they did, for whatever reason. So that one is in the works. 2216, the pregnancy centers, well, there's 2 or 3 of these bills where they want to give state money in grants and donations and whatnot to the fake pregnancy centers that do not talk anything about contraception or abortion, only talk about having the baby and adoption. So they're already giving those centers your money, and they want to give them some more. The next one is a very similar thing, 2439, and that is a website information only talking about pregnancy and adoption, not talking about contraception or abortion. The next one, prohibiting any public funding for abortion, even to save the life of the mother. Even to save the life of the mother. This is how much we care. But then, they're trying to cut SNAP as well and all the other benefits, because once the child is born, they don't care about it. They only care about it before it's born. Oh, and there's the very next one, 1347, access. Now, this one, we have tried to pass this for many years and not been successful. And this is just a measly $1,000 maximum per person on access, pregnant woman on access who needs dental care. Why is this important? There's a nurse in here. Why is it important that pregnant women have dental care? Anybody want to elucidate us on that?
Because dental care affects all of your health.
Yeah.
And an abscess tooth can lead to systemic infection and kill mother and child.
Yeah, systemic infections, that sort of thing will harm the fetus, but they don't care about that. They just want to make sure you have it. Not what condition it might be in or not. So far we've not been able to get this passed, and it's up again this year. And the next one, there are 3 custody bills. She mentioned I did battered women stuff for 18 years, and then when I lived abroad, I still was doing violence against women stuff. And there are 3 bills this year related to custody of children. And I support them. And the Democrats oppose all 3 of them. And the odd thing about it is, in the mid-'80s and mid-'90s, these bills were passed by whom? The Republicans. And the Democrats opposed them. And now here we are in 2025, and the Republicans are trying to get rid of them, and the Democrats are opposing them. I know, you got to pull your hair out of your head. And I have tried to talk to them. I have talked to them, my own representatives and other representatives. And why are you opposing this? This is the problem. This is what's going on. And it's made no impact whatsoever, and they've still opposed them. All right. So the first one, actually, I do not support, which is one on the temporary custody orders that either parent could go back every 6 months and ask to review the temporary custody order. That's not a good idea. Right now, you can go back if you can show that there's some harm to the child. Okay, that's all right. But if you can go back every 6 months, what's going to happen? The rich one is going to drag the poor one back to court every 6 months. And the poor one, without a lawyer and without any money, working a menial job, can't take off work, blah, 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 is going to be dragged to court every 6 months. So that one I do not support. The next one is the parental alienation. What is parental alienation? Yeah, so supposedly. But some 30 years ago, Gardner, a person with no training, no intelligence, who eventually killed himself, came up with this to support men's rights, to support fathers' rights, basically, saying that the reason that these kids don't like their dads is because the moms are alienating them. The reason they didn't like their dads because they're beating them, they're abusing them, or they never see them. I never saw my dad, I never saw him. He worked from morning to night. I never saw him. I would recognize him, but so it was immediately, moms are alienating, and that started that. Is no scientific basis, no research studies to stand behind it. It's become, that is part of the reason I have my lawsuit at the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights that I filed in 2007, and I'm still waiting for the decision. It's done, everything's done, and we're just waiting for the decision. And I sent him an email and said, I hope you get this before I die. I mean, I am 78. Could we have this before I die? So anyway, we'll see. But the point is that the Department of Justice paid for a nationwide study by a law professor from Georgetown to look at cases, custody cases, in which the judge found and wrote there has been violence or there has been molestation. The dad claimed alienation, and the judge gave custody to the dad. Even though the judge found that there was abuse and or molestation. Just say alienation and you win. And that's a fact. And then she did the study, and from 15 to 16, the findings were written up in 18. She did a redo in 22, found the same thing. Many states have started to make this prohibited, that you cannot use this in courts because it is complete and utter baloney. So the Republicans put this in, mid-'90s. So now they're taking it out. And now the Democrats are opposing it. I don't know why. It's passed, so we'll see what happens in the Senate. And the next one is the shared custody, same thing, 2296. We opposed this when I worked at the Coalition Against Domestic Violence in the mid-'80s. We opposed this. The Democrats opposed it. Republicans got it passed. Now Republicans want to take it out, and now the Democrats are supporting it. Don't know why. And the coalition is also supporting it. Don't know why. We had a big fight at a stakeholder meeting that we had down there, and the coalition said they were representing the providers, the people who provide services to battered women and children. And I said, well, we represent the battered women and children, not the providers who make money from this. We represent the battered women and children. So we do not want this. And what it is a finding, a preference for shared custody, even though that may not have been what's happening in the marriage ever. How many people in here, whoever had kids and you raised them, shared the caretaking of those children 50-50 with your spouse? 1, 2. All right. It's getting better. Both of my nephews are very, very involved in the caretaking of their children, and my niece's husband, very, very, and that's great. That's wonderful. But that has not been our history. And for most women, they are the primary caretaker. So what shared custody did was throw that all out the window and say 50-50, that's it. And oftentimes what happened? The child went to the dad, and who took care of the child? Grandma or girlfriend or daycare. So that's what this is, changes it to say what we tried to get in there in the mid 90s and 80s, both times, was preference for the primary caretaker and the bond between whichever parent the child has the strongest bond with. Right? Because breaking the bond between the parent and the child is harmful to the child. So that's where we're going. And it's also passed, and the Democrats are opposed to it. I don't know why. They won't tell me. I've tried to figure it out, and I can't. All right. 2868, preferential treatment. No such. We don't want any preferential treatment. However, I would agree with that. Wouldn't you agree with that? We shouldn't prefer somebody because they're black, white, male, female, whatever, right? But that's not what they mean. When you read the bill, that's not what they mean. They mean you cannot take any actions. Actually, it says in one of the bills, you cannot take any actions to come up with a neutral or colorblind workplace. So whatever inequalities are already in place must stay there, right? Because you can't take any action to fix it. So we must maintain the hierarchy we have. Is that anything we want to do? No. I didn't hear a screaming no. So no, we don't want to. And it says, and this will surely, if it ever passes, this will throw it out. They actually have in there that in a school setting, you can argue for maintaining the status quo. You cannot argue for changing it to include more people of color or women. Now, that type of law has already been thrown out as unconstitutional because it's a viewpoint discrimination, a violation of the First Amendment, right? If you can argue this, but you can say this, but you can't say that, that's the government telling you what you can say. That is viewpoint discrimination. You have to agree with my viewpoint that we should keep the guys we got, and you can't even argue this other viewpoint that, wouldn't it be nice if we had some diversity? No. Well, that's viewpoint discrimination, violation of first. So I don't think it will pass, but if it does, well, I'm sure Hobbs will veto it anyway. But so that's what they're trying to do down there. It's enough to drive a person crazy. Oh, and this next one really drives me crazy. And that is, and Kavanaugh, somebody mentioned Kavanaugh earlier about what a slime bucket he is. And Kavanaugh puts this bill in every year that we should mandate that schools have to teach about Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Native Hawaiians and their contributions to American society. Anything wrong with that? No, it's perfectly fine. At the same time, you may not teach about African Americans and their contribution to American society. At the same time, right? Do we see any problem here? Yeah, we do. So every year he puts his bill in. Every year it hasn't passed yet. I guess that was the end of it. All right. Now, I put out a weekly action alert. I try to get it out. Well, so far this year I got it out on Saturday of every week, which lists every bill under the sun that I'm following. I started out following 544. And of course, as you go through the session, it becomes less and less because they don't even hear half of the bills that they introduce. And then the time to be heard in the House of Origin is passed. Now the bills that pass the House of Origin are over to the other house, and they have until, I think it's the 28th of March, to hear the bills from the other house. So each week it gets less and less as bills don't pass or bills fail, whatever happens, so it becomes less and less till by the end, you're only looking at 4 or 5 bills. But this week, I think, was about 15 pages of active bills next week that are being heard, but that's down from 40. So, so I put that out every Saturday if you're interested, and then I put a little description, not a little, depending on how much I need, description of what it's about, and the pros and cons, and particularly with the bills where we're on opposite sides, the people that should be pals, we're on opposite sides, like that development for religious housing, that religious development, being able to build housing issue. So that's all I wanted to present. So I'm open for any questions, discussions.
Thank you for bringing my speaking. Okay. Sorry, I don't use this much. How do we get on your weekly action alert?
Oh,
Dianne, thank you very much for this presentation, for being
Oh,
so
okay.
thorough. And thank you for being there, because we so greatly need you and many other voices there. But how do we get on your weekly action alert?
if you want my weekly action alert, just give me your email. I'll put you on the MailChimp. Some people have asked about RTS, a request to speak. If you are not on request to speak, there are two ways you can get on. You can go to CEBV, which is, why do I keep forgetting the first word? Engagement beyond voting, civic engagement beyond voting. You can go to CEBV, scroll down, there'll be a place there where it will say RTS sign up. You click that, you fill out the form, they will go down to the House or Senate and sign you up. They will then email you your password. You can then change it. So you can then change your password to whatever you want, and from now on, you can do RTS from your own bedroom in your own pajamas in the morning and drinking your coffee, right? You don't have to go down there. So that's the easiest way to do it. The second way to do it is to go down there. Go into the first floor of the House or the Senate. The Senate is the easiest because they don't have any security check, the metal detectors when you go in. Find a young kid wearing a blue blazer, and there are the pages, and just say, help me sign up for RTS, and they'll sign you up right then and there. So you can do it either one of those two ways. And the other discussion we had this morning was, does RTS make any difference? Does anybody care? Yes, it does. Was that what you were going to ask? Yes, it does. It matters. I've heard different things. I've heard one person said that half of the legislators look at it, but I've been told that all of the legislators look at it, and they don't always vote. Sometimes you'll see things, 300 people say yes, 2 people say no, and the Republicans vote no. All right? So you say, well, what's the point? What good did mine do? It helps because when Katie Hobbs then vetoes it, she has backup, right? She's not just making this up out of her head. You can look at the thing and you can see the most citizens of Arizona objected to this. So I, being the governor, representing all of the citizens of Arizona, not just my party, but all of them, will veto this. So it gives her the backup she needs to do the vetoing that she needs to do, a lot of it, right? So even though you don't see that your particular vote on this thing or your feeling on this thing won, that is a benefit. The other benefit, as Jeannie was describing this morning, was when you put in the reason. You may have given somebody an idea of how to argue against it. They may not have thought of the particular reason you are opposed. Like with that housing bill. They may not have thought about the issue of, the developer's wet dream, et cetera. So if you put that, there's just a little short, small area where you can put in your reason. But if you put in something like that, somebody might take that and say, oh, that's a good argument, and use it in the committee or use it on the floor. I frequently get emails from the staff saying, I see you objected to this. What's your reason? And I'll give them 1, 2, 3, 4. Refer them to a study, refer them to a poll, or what the heck ever, where was the basis that I got this, somewhere other than out of my own fevered brain, right? And send it to them so then they have the arguments. So you can help them with that as well by putting that in, even if they vote, not those persons, but even if the vote in the end turns out against you, you've helped with the reasoning, you've helped with governor to veto it. So it is useful. Other questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Diane. Really appreciate it. Let me ask you, over many years, a number of times, statewide offices, such as for a governor, senators, AG, Secretary of State, that kind of stuff, go to Democrats. And then in those same elections, we elect boneheads, like the guy who's Secretary of Education, Tom Horn. And these statewide races are not subject to the influence of gerrymandering. What's your theory as to how can a guy like Tom Horn get elected when we're electing all of these other statewide Democrats? Thank you very much.
How Tom Horn got elected is absolutely beyond me. I have no theory except insanity. She was so good anyway. Kathy Hoffman was so good. And we elected Democrats in other statewide offices. How the heck did Horn get in? I do not know the answer to that. I can't answer that. I mean, we know why the individual LDs get in because of gerrymandering, because of the partisanship and the way that they're parceled out, et cetera. And the statewide ones, then you can overcome them with the number of people that are in the bigger city areas, which is exactly what they're trying to get rid of, by turning Maricopa, by the way, into 4 different counties and cutting off all of the suburbs in Maricopa County so that they can make them red districts and then just leave the center, which is the major blue, which is where I live, just leave the center, and that way they're going to have more red areas. And one other thing to think about, there's a bill in the legislature to start an Office of Defense Innovation. How many think it's a good idea to have an Office of Defense Innovation? No, this is a state office. Okay. The reason what they say the office will do is work with the feds and private contractors to bring more military contracting here and research and all of that sort of thing. If you bring those people here, who are you bringing, Republicans or Democrats? Republicans. You're bringing Republicans. And all the Democrats are down there voting for this, and I'm going, hello, do you realize who's coming if this happens? It won't be Democrats. So you got to think long term here and out of the box, and not just about the next election, which is unfortunately what most people think about. Yes?
As far as Tom Horn being elected, I would say he got elected because he's anti-public education, and she was pro-public education, period, end of story. There's a lot of money going into private education, and this voucher thing's out of control. She was also a woman. She was very supportive. She went around the whole dang state and talked to numerous schools, and because of all that activity she did, they made sure Tom Horn was running against her.
Yeah.
Because he did even worse back in 2010 when he eliminated the Hispanic Studies program down in Tucson, which many people don't realize what happened. They even had armed guards and all kinds of people back there in 2010, because I was teaching during that time, and it was a fiasco down there in Tucson.
Years ago, there was thought or statements saying that the Catholic schools and other religious schools are doing everything they can to get their hand on the public school money, because the religious schools were going broke. They were going down because there were not enough people who were going to those schools to pay for them. So they were closing. So they had to figure out a way to get their hands on the public money, and now they have it. Now they got it. And you know, there's a case at the United States Supreme Court about that Oklahoma case where they passed that bill to send all this money to a Oklahoma religious school, and they sued it. It's at the Supreme Court. I'm really scared what it's going to do with it. Any other questions, issues, discussions?
Got plenty of time for questions.
I didn't hear anybody volunteer to clean my house. Yet.
For the last 4.5 years, I've been notifying my students that the Pledge of Allegiance is optional for them because the schools do not notify them of this, even though there's 2 Supreme Court cases specifying that they do not have to participate in this. Since they're so keen on trying to notify parents about this, I would like to put in a bill to force the schools to post in each classroom that the allegiance is optional. They do not have to say it, they don't have to stand for it, Just don't do it if you don't want to. Yeah. How would I guess, get started on that?
Talk to your legislator. Who's your legislator?
A student bill of rights.
It's too late now. I mean, you can't do it this year. Well, there is a student bill of rights. And one of the things that we argued about with all these custody things was that we have to start putting the rights of the children ahead of the parents. Because all they want is parents' rights, parents' rights. They're using the parents' rights as an excuse to get their ideology into the schools and everywhere else. But children have rights too. And the older they get, the more rights they have, including medical ones and making decisions on medical cases, et cetera. So that, we keep bringing that up, but that has to be solidified as well. Yes?
Can you clarify something for me? What is it called, concurrent resolutions, where both houses agree to something and it goes on the ballot?
House concurrent resolution or Senate concurrent resolution, and if they both pass the same thing, then it goes on the ballot.
Now, is that just a way of getting around the governor's veto?
Yes.
So it means that the ballot is going to be a mile long
Yes.
next time? Okay.
Yes, that's what they did last time. And they're going to do it again. Yep. I saw this thing on Facebook that said, if you want, how does this go? Maybe somebody can, if you want churches in my school, then I want the IRS in your church. Right? Yeah. All right. Any other questions, issues, discussions? Otherwise, I'll sit down and eat some more. All right, thanks.
Thank you so much, Dianne.